Hello and welcome to the 2015 State of Black America web series. I'm your moderator, Shannon Lanier. Every year, the National Urban League releases its highly anticipated report on the state of Black America. The report has become the national touchstone for social and economic status of African American and Hispanic communities. Now, this year's report, Save Our Cities, Education, Jobs, and Justice, addresses the crisis facing African Americans and other communities of color in education, employment, and justice. Now, each year we ask the same question: what is the state of Black America? Today, our esteemed panelists will answer that question as it relates to the state of Black business. Joining me are Shante Bacon, founder and CEO of 135th Street Agency; Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Chief Content Officer at Black Enterprise; and Stefanie Brown James, CEO and founding partner of Vestige and founder of Brown Girls Lead. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Alfred, so Black Enterprise reports on this all the time. So what are the industries that have the best opportunity for people of color?
Well, it's probably the ones you would expect. Technology is still very, very important because it's driving the economy. Healthcare, health services is still very important because it's driving the economy. So those are kind of the two biggest drivers. If you look at any area that's creating jobs for the general marketplace, then those are places that African American entrepreneurs need to be.
And what do you think about corporate America? Are there opportunities there for people of color?
I definitely think so. I think right now is a great time to be a person of color in entrepreneurship or in corporate America. I think that there are opportunities that are expanding, like the front office of the MBA and the browning of that. The MBA has a African American COO, CMO, and agency of record. This is probably the first time ever something like that is happening. You have Black executives that are Chief Engagement Officer at Pepsi, Frank Cooper. You know, the fact that a person like a Ken Chenault can even exist, and there's countless other glory stories like that. And I think that, you know, it's the same thing on the entrepreneurial side. There are great and amazing things that are happening in film. Let's say in 30 years ago, there was one, maybe two successful African-American directors. Now you have 10 that are winning awards and have films that are coming out annually. On the TV side, executive producers, you've got groundbreaking things happening on the regular.
Now, do you think there's still such a thing as the glass ceiling?
I absolutely do think that there is a glass ceiling when it comes to African Americans getting into business. One of the things that we've seen over the last few years is that there continues to be barriers of entry for many Black entrepreneurs who want to start their own businesses. Oftentimes in our community, we see that many people are not getting the amount of loans that they need to start their own businesses. A lot of times they don't have the access to capital or the mentorship that's necessary to start a successful business. But even with those barriers in place, one of the things that most excites me is the fact that Black women are beginning to really drive entrepreneurship. In fact, Black women now outpace other women by 6 times the amount of white women, Asian, and Hispanic women who are beginning their own businesses. And so we're seeing some bright lights there, even though there are some barriers that we still need to overcome.
You know, it even goes beyond that. Black women are the fastest growing entrepreneurial group in the country, period, right now, followed by Latino women. So we're seeing good things in that area. But the issue of access to capital, the issue of mentorship, these are issues that we address annually at the Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit, is a major one because now the issue is no longer just starting businesses. Because starting businesses that employ only 1 or 2 people, that's not bad, but it's not going to address the larger issues when we talk about the state of Black America, which is job creation and wealth creation. So now our focus really has to be on what kind of businesses are scalable. What kind of businesses can go from a self-employed or a 2-person operation to a 10-person operation or a 15-person operation? And are we getting the kinds of support in terms of investment access, as well as government support, as well as community support that will feed those jobs and companies, particularly in the urban areas that need those jobs the most?
Which is why I think it's really exciting that we're seeing more African Americans become franchisees.
Yes.
You know, that definitely has been a traditional area where from the motor companies to a lot of the restaurant franchises, we see an extreme boom in African Americans getting franchises across the country. And what's really necessary is for us to continue to make sure that partnerships exist on the civil rights and the social justice side with many of these companies who want to have more diverse diversity when it comes to their franchises. Just last year, the NAACP partnered with Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins to reach out to minorities, to people of color who wanted to become franchisees, and help them get the training and the contacts that they needed to make sure that people were educated so that they can become franchisee owners.
Are there other programs that are out there that exist like that? You always hear of, people sponsoring people to become, franchisees or get into some type of business. Are there other programs or websites where we can find programs like that?
I'm sure there are, but as an entrepreneur myself, I can tell you that there are programs that are in the developing stages or they are built with the best of intent, but it doesn't exactly materialize or come it doesn't actually have the impact that they hope for it to have. For example, as an entrepreneur, there's a big conversation in corporate America about diversity and all of these diverse initiatives, supplier diversity executives, and sometimes it is an extension of an HR department that it's somewhere between a person who's like a checks and balances person who keeps the company honest and makes sure that they hit certain numbers, and a passionate person who is championing diversity. And the challenge is, as an entrepreneur, is that you see people who get very frustrated because they take meeting after meeting after meeting, especially in a service-based business, and the word of the supplier diversity executive that's bringing you in isn't exactly respected by the service-based departments internally. If I'm looking to source pens, cups, get carpet laid, construction, that's easier for them to take my word for it. If you're coming in the door and you're saying this person is the best in PR or marketing, then they're probably not going to be taken as seriously because they don't have a PR marketing background, but more of a people background in HR. So I think that there's room to grow there, but for entrepreneurs who are out there and want to make it work, it's really more of a strategic decision. You have to make sure your timing is together, your relationship is rock solid, and constantly work that relationship and see that supplier diversity executive as more of the person who is going to help hand you a bag of seeds. Each seed is an introduction. You are the farmer, you're going to plant the seed, you're going to nurture it, you're going to grow it, and you make out of that seed what you can, but they're not going to hand you business.
Let me piggyback off of what Shante has just said on two different fronts. One is the issue of supplier diversity and to the degree to which companies and industries are actually passionate about reaching out and seeing African Americans not just as dollars and sources of data, but as business partners and people that can provide services and goods for them.
Right.
There's a direct correlation between the pressure that we put on those companies and the attention we put on those companies to do business, not just sell to us, but do business with us, and the degree to which they're really enthusiastic about seeking out people to do business with of color. This is why Black Enterprise does an annual ranking of blacks on boards. We're about to do a list of top black companies, or top companies when it comes to supplier diversity and doing business with African Americans. It's another reason why we're aligning with other organizations to put pressure on Silicon Valley, because that is the perfect example of they want our data, they want our dollars, but they're not necessarily trying to employ us. They're not going out of their way to do business with us. They don't spend money in black or African American owned media or minority media, but they're perfectly happy to have us standing around in line for the new version of whatever the device is coming out to buy their stuff. So we have to continue to bring pressure with organizations like the Urban League and others that says, yes, we're happy that we can buy these things, but if we don't have the jobs and the business and the wealth creation capacity to be able to afford it, then the fact that we can have the right to buy it is almost a hollow victory.
So since you can't rely on that supplier diversity, what suggestions do you have for people that are trying to get that capital? That's the biggest problem most entrepreneurs face, is they can't get that capital. So how do they get the money to start it?
Encouraging trends right now is the boom in business plan competitions and the boom in accelerators, because it addresses two different things. One, you can compete for cash, and if you're not ready to do business the way Shante is with major corporations, you can compete for the cash that can help you grow your business to that point of competitiveness. As you know, we have our elevator pitch competition where you can win $10,000, the top winner gets, but more importantly, they get 6 hours of mentoring to help them grow their business. So that's one thing. The accelerators, and probably the best known one is New Me Accelerator that we saw in Black in America a few years ago. It really does bring you into this community where you can get access to relations with venture capitalists and other people in what we call the small business ecosystem that most of the time we are locked out of. We don't know where the money is. We don't know who has the money because we're not in that community.
And from a business owner standpoint, I would say that Alfred made a point a little while ago about the fact that it's a numbers game, and definitely with supplier diversity, there will be certain executives, the larger the corporation, that they just say, well, we hit so-and-so numbers, and they're proud to say that, but they don't understand that to a person who's growing a business, that doesn't mean much when you feel locked out of it. But what I would say is that the key buzzwords to making it work, and to your question about financing, is economic empowerment. So there's no secret that African Americans as a whole, we spend. We spend, we love to spend.
But why
Spending
don't we spend
feels
in our
good.
own community?
That's a whole nother issue. But as far as being an entrepreneur, we spend, but that we're not economically empowered for the most part. And to me, the biggest lesson I've learned about that is if you have no economic voice, you have no social voice. No one's listening if you don't have the ability to make someone feel the effect of you not writing a check or not spending. So all the conferences and the relationships that Black Enterprise, the articles, the resources, the information, the conferences, the relationships, all of the connecting, all of that can be leveraged to help you build the bridge between you starting your business and economic empowerment, because they have the relationships with the people who are controlling the dollars, who happen to be African American executives who are passionate about making change. If you don't connect with them, the road will be long and difficult. You know, entrepreneurs, no one starts a business and says, oh, I'm just starting this business so I can do mediocre work. No one does that. Everyone wakes up thinking, I'm going to do this business because I'm good at this and I'm going to do a great job. Then when the reality sets in, whether it's a storefront where you have to put a ton of capital up front to get the best ovens and the best, you know, location, whether it's that or a service-based business where you can start off with little to no investment, but as soon as word gets out about your reputation, you get good business and you get consistent clients coming in, then it's like, whoa, we're only two people. We can't do all of this business. Now our human resource capital needs have doubled or quadrupled. That's when your resources come in. It will be a long, hard road without those resources, but building those relationships, planting those seeds, and pulling all of it together for your benefit is how you make that work.
Well, Stefanie, what are some of the ways people can go about getting those resources? We keep talking about get the resources. How can they go about finding them?
Well, I actually, so I have, I'm also an entrepreneur, similar to Shante, and I have both Vestige Strategies is my community and civic engagement consulting firm. But I also have a more social enterprise, which is the new term that we hear a lot. I have a social enterprise, which is Brown Girls Lead, which is a leadership development organization for Black women. Now, it's different than an LLC or an INC type of company, but this is an organization where I do need to rely on donors. I need to rely on different forms of capital to make sure that our organization stays afloat. And I really want to kind of push back on the idea that African Americans don't support African American owned businesses. I've found in my own experiences that if it were not for the African American community, for Black people who rallied behind me, that neither one of my businesses would have flourished to the point that it has, because the support of the community was so strong financially and also spiritually, and also just to get the mentoring that I needed from other business owners, that was important. And so I think when it comes to social entrepreneurship, it's important to make sure that, you know, you are reaching out to foundations and funders who want to support the issues that you're championing in your organization. For us, it's women's development and empowerment, but also looking for different grants. You know, the U.S. Small Business Administration has a number of grants for small business owners, especially for women business owners. And so really it's important to do your homework as an entrepreneur to make sure that you're making the connections you need to make, but also that you're making sure that your bottom line and your bottom dollar is being met for your company because you're doing your due diligence along the way.
Quick thing just to input about that, because if I was sitting at home as a person who's starting a new business and I absorbed all the information that you just gave, all of that is factual and great, but in a lot of cases, especially with Small Business Administration, U.S. grants and things like that, it's a long process to apply and go through, you know, everything that you have to go through to get to it. But I would say that also as a community, I would love to just throw out there that sometimes it's a mentality change. So just the way that we approach starting a business. I sat in a program called Double Digit Academy, and I was the only person of color in the room. And every single person who was sitting at the table was talking about, I need this venture capital so I can start this business so I can sell it in 4 years. No one had the mentality that I'm going to keep this business for longer than 4 to 5 years. Whereas I feel like we get in and we think we're going to have this business forever, retire, and and in a lot of cases we'll see stories of African American entrepreneurs who start the business, they keep it, it's alive as long as they're alive. When they pass away, the family doesn't want to take on the responsibility of keeping the business alive or the backbreaking work that it took to keep the business alive.
You make a good point, and Alfred, I want you to jump in there and tell us how realistic is that people can start a business and be able to sell it 4 years, 5 years later?
It's not only realistic, but it should be the goal.
It should be.
The point of business ownership is wealth creation.
Absolutely.
It's not just so you can have your name on the door until you die. Think of who are the first billionaires that we have in black billionaires. Bob Johnson built something, sold something, built something, sold something, acquired something, sold something. All the major, and we have to also raise a generation of people that can say the words a million and billion without stuttering.
Absolutely.
So you have to understand that while it's nice to have certain companies that are really family legacy companies, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're not going to build significant wealth until we get comfortable with the idea that I'm going to build something of value, and then sell it because I can use that money to invest in another business of my own or to invest in other businesses and provide the capital that we need. And this circles back to a point that I think is to the heart of what the Urban League does best. We need to be very serious, and it can't be just the Urban League. All of us have to be serious about entrepreneurial education and personal finance and financial literacy in our communities. Unfortunately, most of us don't even start learning this stuff until we have to do it for real without a safety net,
Yes.
and the mortgages do. And another reason why jobs are so important. Jobs are not important. People say, oh, you should have a business and not a job. The reason why we start out behind when we have high levels of unemployment is that your job is usually your first time seeing how a business is run. So you have generations of African Americans and African American men in particular who have never seen a business from the inside because they've never worked. And therefore they don't understand the disciplines and what service is about and what customer service is about.
Or if they did work, they were on the lower end
lowest
that never
level
got a chance to see
to be
how this
exposed to how it
machine
operates.
works. Right.
So education, jobs, entrepreneurship, and wealth creation is not 4 separate issues. It's one broad issue that creates the building blocks for a really empowered community.
So Stefanie, what do you think one of the biggest mistakes is that entrepreneurs do when they try to start their own business?
I think a huge mistake is not being passionate about the business that you are trying to start and not having a plan of action to tackle what it is that you want to do. I know a lot of times, they say that you have to have a complete business plan. I'm not saying you have to have, a 30-page document, but you need to have an idea of, this is the problem I want to solve, or this is the niche that I want to make sure that my service or my product can provide for, and make sure that also you surround yourself with people who know more than you do. So you have to have a team of people, whether they're mentors, whether they're people who are going to be employed by you, who can make sure that they also see and understand your vision and help you move on. And just know that, I think it's important to make mistakes. You make mistakes, you learn from them, you grow and you move on. But it's important that you communicate those mistakes to people who are also coming behind you. I agree, we need to have more family conversations and more family learning opportunities together, because oftentimes in households you have mom and dad who also don't have the information that they can pass on to their children about financial independence and wealth building. And so these are really conversations that need to happen that I'm excited that the Urban League and other civil rights organizations especially are working to have more of in our communities.
Yeah, you mentioned mistakes. What's the number one reason, Alfred, that businesses fail?
The number one reason is that we are not as passionate about running a business as we are as starting a business. The starting part is exciting. You get your name on the door, you get your business cards, you get an office, you start, but then there's the nuts and bolts, and this goes back to why the Black Enterprise Entrepreneurs Conference and other conferences that gets into the nuts and bolts of operating and financing a business. So we have to create a community of people who are passionate about running and growing businesses, not just passionate about fashion or food or music.
And about quality.
And about the quality
Yeah,
of the service. The other thing is the tendency to get, listen, passion is critical, but you need to have a passion for what they want, not a passion for what you want to give them.
Right.
And so
Absolutely.
we'll get
Passion,
all
nobody wants it.
committed to this, this great idea, and God gave this to me in a vision, and I got to do this, I got to do this. But if nobody's buying, you're not going to beat the market. So the entrepreneurs that succeed are good at saying, this is what I think I want to offer, and I'm going to put it out there. But if I get feedback from the customer says, I want it differently, I want it in a different color, I want it a different way, it's not, then I got to have the willingness to say, I may have my own passion about this, but the market says they're willing to pay for this, and I want to be in business and I want to succeed.
Yeah, you
and
guys
you got to be flexible because it's about serving customers.
You guys are all delivering great information, but we have to end soon. But
Well,
I want to.
I have to.
Okay, go ahead.
So
jump in.
it's just for every entrepreneur that is out there watching this. There was a time maybe 10 years ago when we started when I would have said that, you know, one of the problems is that people start without enough passion. But at this point, after the experience, I would say that passion isn't even really the biggest mistake that's out there that's being made. I would think, at this point, I think it's a resources plan. I really do. I think that if you're starting a business off of pure passion, that's nice. But if you intend to start this business to build wealth, there's a whole other plan that has to be put in play. And one thing I think I hear a lot of—
A financial plan is one of them.
A financial plan, specifically a resources growing plan. Like when you talk to folks that are not ethnic, I hope I said that right. So the way that they build a business is completely different. They don't think about struggling. It's like, where am I going to get the money so I can hire the people that I need to hire so I can, you know, build this fast and cash out. And that, not that everyone wants to cash out, because some people are doing, if I'm baking and I want to bake for the rest of my life, there's nothing wrong with that. I can open up 30 bakeries. But sometimes when we hit a wall and it's hard and their resources are thin, what we do is say, oh, this is not a good industry for black people. Like when we started years ago, we kept hearing, why would you want to open up a black ad agency? Those are dying by the second. Like, why, that's not a good industry to go into. We didn't end up going in that route because PR and social media marketing was more lucrative for us, and the stars, moon, and sun aligned that just led us in that direction. But when you look at PR as an industry, the top 10 businesses are, the top business is making $800 million and reports growth every year. That would be Edelman. The PR business as a whole, $12.8 billion made in 2013 and employed 80,000 people. Out of the top 250 PR agencies, not one agency of color owned by African-American entrepreneur or business owner. So there's room to grow. There's a space in there for us. It's just that you're not going to crack into that 250 without the resources that you need in order to staff up to get the bigger clients. So it's chicken or the egg for sure, but the resources plan has got to happen when you're conceptualizing the business. It has to.
Okay, so put together a resource plan, financial plan, and shake the haters off. Last piece of advice. What do you have for us? Last piece of advice.
You have to learn to earn. If you're isolated in your company and all you're doing is you got your head to the grindstone, you're not going out and meeting people, somebody has the answer you need. And too many entrepreneurs, especially new minority entrepreneurs, spend all their time reinventing the wheel that's already been invented. So relationships and networking is not just about getting somebody to give you a loan or give you an investment. It's about getting knowledge and mentorship so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
All right, and last piece of advice for us.
Focus on lifetime learning. So look at publications like Black Enterprise Magazine, like Success Magazine. Read up on publications that will help you to grow your business and also help you to develop as a person as well.
And take classes,
There you
for
go.
sure.
Well, thank you all for that dynamic conversation. Great job, really appreciate it. And now we want you to please share this series with your social media friends and followers, and let's continue this solution session using the hashtag #SaveOurCities. Now please get involved. The State of Black America web series has been presented by AT&T. Thank you, AT&T, for your continued support of the National Urban League. We also like to thank Comcast for their production support of the State of Black America web series. Together, we are empowering communities and changing lives. Now, don't forget to follow me on social media at Mr. Shannon Lanier and at Arise TV 360. And for more information on the State of Black America and to purchase the book, visit the National Urban League at www.stateofblackamerica.org.